بإحسان إلى يوم الدين أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. My respected brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. It seems we just made a transition from, mashallah, ISM Main to ISM Brookfield, because Sister Janan, Brother Najib, there is Brother Ali, Hamada, all of us were together this afternoon. So it seems, mashallah, today is the day of lectures. Let me recap what we were saying last week, that the modern historians, they divide the history eras into different eras. We talked about the antiquity, we talked about the medieval times, and we talked about the modern era, but this is where the modern era comes to an end. The second industrial revolution is considered from 1869 to 1914. Remember that the original industrial revolution is considered to be in the 18th century. Then this is the second industrial revolution, which is often called as the technological revolution. Then comes the World War I, everybody knows this part of history, World War II, and from 1945 to current, it is called the modern New World Order. So what we are living is the contemporary period. This is called the period or the age of information. You know it. So now, in the modern contemporary age of basically information, what we are told that the Western world achieved the power, the authority, the technology, and now is the leading civilization of the world. So they claim that originally this civilization had its foundation in the Greco-Roman world. So we are a copy of what they call the Roman Empire. Now, I'm going to go into the details, but I want to give you the summary so that you understand the argument. Remember, the Greco-Roman world was kind of dominant in the 1st century, 2nd century, 3rd century. And in 476, this is what is called the fall of Rome. The Roman Empire was destroyed. 476. Now from 476 till, let's say, 18th century, there's a lot of time, 15 centuries between them and between the modern civilization. So if somehow the claim is made that our science, our technology, our political institutions, our democracy, our human rights, or the American dream, all of that is based upon the Greco-Roman knowledge, science, and technology. The question is why there was no technology, no democracy, no governance from 476 till, let's say, the American Revolution. It's a huge gap. Number two, if something is 15 centuries old, how can you make a sense of it? Because the word has changed, the language has changed, the vocabulary has changed, the cultures have changed. You cannot bring a 4th or 5th century constitution or science or technology and say, now we can develop or base upon it. Just take the example. Even we know Quran, Sharia, it is continuously being followed for the past 14, 15 centuries. But do you think that we can pick up Sharia right now as it is explained by our scholars and apply it in our modern time? No way. Because the vocabulary has changed, the situation of people have changed. Even what we learned back home in Pakistan, India, Syria, sometimes cannot be made relevant in the society where we are living in. So imagine Aristotle or Plato or Glenn. All of these people, they wrote in the 1st, 2nd, 3rd century language. So if that language, those concepts are not understood and are not continuously explained, 21st century or 19th century will not be able to make it. So that's where what they do not want the people to understand, that the philosophy of Aristotle, the medicine of Glenn, and all of those sciences were preserved by the Muslims. When the Roman Empire was decentralized and then it was kind of destroyed by the Germans, by the Spanish, by the other groups, church took over. Catholic Church or Christian Church took over. And Christian Church banned Aristotle, philosophy, science, everything, because they said, we are religious people. Aristotle did not believe in God or Jesus. Plato and everybody, they were atheists or they were polytheists, mushrik. We do not want to follow the mushrikeen, so they destroyed the books of Aristotle, books of Glenn. They closed the academies, and everything which was not religious was not accepted to be followed in Latin Christian world. Those people who followed the philosophy of Aristotle or the Greco-Roman philosophy, they believed that there's no way Jesus can be God and man at the same time, because it is against human reason. That God, who is the God of power, will come and die a miserable life or will be killed on crucifixion. They believed in the natural world, so they were called heretic. They were persecuted and they ran for their life from the Christian world. Christian world at that time was centered around what is nowadays Constantinople, the Byzantine Empire or the Roman Empire. So they ran from there, they came to Syria. When the church authorities persecuted them in Syria, they ran from there to the desert which is between Iraq and Syria. When the church authorities came after them, they ran from there towards the mountain of Iran. So in the 8th century, when Baghdad became the capital of Muslims and Abbasid came, those Christians, they translated those books of Aristotle and Glenn into Arabic, Dar al-Hikmah, everybody knows it. And in Dar al-Hikmah, those philosophies were discussed. The elements which were against Islamic monotheism, Tawheed, were discussed and discarded. And those things of the government which were against the Islamic concept of government and shura and human rights were discussed and discarded. So Muslims took over the Greco-Roman science, philosophy, astronomy, mathematics, and they borrowed from the Indian sources. Those numerals, which are mostly called the Arabic numerals. Everybody says this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, this is Arabic numeral. If you look at the old Latin numerals, you know how long they are? It was very difficult for them even to go to 1000. But when these Arabic numerals were introduced, especially with 0, 10, 100, 10,000, 200,000, 2 million, it really opened the horizons. And those numerals, actually, they came from the Indian subcontinent. So these were Indian numerals. The Muslims called them Indian numerals, and everybody else called it Arabic numerals. So basically what happens, from the 8th century till the 17th century, Muslims constantly discussed those concepts, modified them, understood them, developed them, and they were at the pinnacle of science and technology of that time. And the government system, which is based upon the distribution of power between the legislature, judiciary, and the execution or the executive branch of, that was developed by the Muslims. Nobody knows it. I mean, remember Al-Qudat or Shura. Now, I'm just going to make it very brief so that you understand it. When Rasulullah ﷺ came, the concept was everything is in the hands of the king. He makes the law, he breaks the law. What the Prophet ﷺ said, no, law is Quran. Quran is the constitution. Quran, the constitution, the law is above all the human beings. Even Prophet Muhammad ﷺ has to follow it. Now everybody, as long as they follow the constitution, they carry the respect or authority. So now what happens is, everybody knows that Khalifa, then comes the ulama who are supposed to explain and interpret the constitution, the Quran. Qudat, judiciary, are to implement it. Now you know the famous incident that Sayyidina Ali is the Khalifa, and a Jew says, his shield belongs to me. And Sayyidina Ali says, it belongs to me. And the Qadi has to call the Khalifa. And the Khalifa wants to sit down, and Qadi says, no, you are equal to the guy. Keep on standing and bring your argument. So, differentiation between the executive power of the Khalifa and the judiciary. Am I clear? Then the whole concept came that yes, you make the law, you give the judiciary to implement it, and as long as the Khalifa is implementing Sharia, he has got the right to rule. But whenever he or she breaks the law, he is going to be removed. So this division between the executive branch of the government, judiciary, and the consultative shura branch, that was established by the Muslims. Now, this is where sometimes when these claims are made that we get everything from our Greco-Roman heritage, I don't want to go into the details because I know it's too much of explanation. But honestly, if you study the Greco-Roman world, there was more dictatorship than democracy. There were 14 families in Rome. They were called patrician families. So they would divide the world between them. Either the head of state, emperor, is going to be either from this family or that family. When the other people started attacking them and they needed soldiers, so they went to the common people, and common people said, we have no share in the government. So at that time they said, we will make a senate for the commoners. But those families had the veto power like our senate. So if the Congress makes the law, but it has to pass through the Senate. What is United Nations? 5 countries have got the veto power. Am I clear? So basically, this democracy, this equality, these type of things were not there in the Greco-Roman, and I don't want to go into the details, I'm just telling you. Now, they make the claim, and they want to project the current situation, the present, upon the past. Because right now they have power, right now they have democracy, right now they have science, so they want to create a genealogy which take them to something other than Islamic. Honestly, their leaders or their historians, they know that they have got Islamic roots. But they want to put a different narrative so they can bypass their Islamic heritage and Islamic root. So let me now explain their perspective, and I will tell and explain to you how even within their perspective, we can prove that the stages they talk about, the stages of Western civilization, were dependent upon Muslims. So let's go. Now let's read what our president say about the Greco-Roman. Look at our current president, President Biden. He said, for 200 years, our nation's fates have been intertwined. He's talking about Greek. Young people from the newly formed United States join Greeks in their fight to defend democracy and individual freedom. Now, President Obama, because as you know, President Biden, everybody know how much of cognizant he is of his surrounding. Even the day before yesterday, he is sitting in Cambodia and he is thanking the Prime Minister of Colombia. He could not differentiate between Cambodia and Colombia. So, but Barack Obama was and still is really an intellectual. He is the student of history. You have to accept that. And when he made that statement in 2016, that was something really, not strange to me, but this is what is the narrative. And I want to play that video if somehow I can. Let me see if I can. No. YouTube. Okay, here it comes. Oh my God. Sometimes you need these young people who know computer inside out. It's not giving me the opportunity to.
Young people.
Maybe because there is extra video. YouTube.
Can somebody? Otherwise, I can summarize it. Yes. Here comes Brother Nawaz.
Just copy and paste on YouTube.
Yes, can we go? Yes.
No, I mean, this is not active link. Copy that one, paste in YouTube and we'll work.
Yeah.
It's not giving me the opportunity. It is on this page. Yeah. Yes. Okay, now. Shah. Okay. Thank you, Brother Nawaz. Thank you for saving us. What? It's not showing, Brother Nawaz. Can you come back and connect it with the, and then stand here once we are done with that video, then that we do.
Which is raise money that needs study. It's so expensive, especially for school. I know now, even we think 10 cents is too much for them.
How can you share it with the?
It's free now. WhatsApp and everything. WhatsApp and WhatsApp and FaceTime.
Okay, I think we will just. We have failed to share it with you, so I'm just going to go with the presentation itself. Now put the presentation back. Somehow we are. Okay. President Obama said that basically we owe everything to the Greco-Roman, and this is what exactly President Trump said. Now, this is what we are told, this is how the modern civilization came to where it is. So it began with ancient Greco-Roman civilization, fall of Rome in 476, then starts the Dark Ages. So these Dark Ages, they say, basically continued till the 13th century. In the 13th century, there was a Renaissance. Renaissance means rebirth. Rebirth of those Greco-Roman sciences, and that led to scholasticism. This is a trend, and I'm going to explain to you, and humanism, which led to 16th century's Italian Renaissance. Now, Italian Renaissance resulted in 16th century Protestant Reformation. Reformation led to 17th and 18th century English Enlightenment, which led to scientific revolution, American and French revolutions. Enlightenment and revolutions led to human equality, universal human rights, democracy, modernity, and American dream. So modern civilization has its roots in the Greco-Roman, Judeo-Christian traditions with the exclusion of every other tradition. Now, this is what is being claimed, that Western civilization is the superior mother of all civilization, the true blessing to mankind. The West has achieved this climax on its own without any external non-Western help. That's where you will not read in any of the books of science or technology or book of governance any Muslim name, even though the roots of all of that is in the Muslim world. And not only Muslims, but Chinese are excluded, Indians are excluded. You know, every other civilization is completely excluded, as if it is only in the DNA of the European people. And this is what is called that European rationalism, intellectualism, exceptionalism are the unique characteristic of Western mind and condition, and it is in European DNA. Now, this is where I am going to start discussing that from 5th and 15th century, following the collapse of Western Roman Empire, European society entered something of a plateau, a period of cultural stagnation that lasted for 1,000 years. This is what is called the Dark Ages. In that, king owned everything in England, in France, everywhere. There was no personal property. He gave it to the feudal lords. They took it, rented from him, and those feudal lords gave it to the serfs and to everybody else. Am I clear? So there was no concept of personal property. Now, in these Dark Ages, basically what you look at, there's no science, there's no technology. And if you study the history of Europe, always pandemics. Have you heard the word Black Death? 1/3 of Europe was what? Destroyed. So if there was technology, if there was science, where was that for all of those years? Now, they talk about Aristotle and Plato, and I have already explained to you that their books were not even translated, and their books were translated by the Muslims, and from the Muslims, it came to the Western world. Here, as I was explaining during the day, remember, Sicily was conquered by Muslims in the 8th century. Muslims ruled Sicily for 300 years. Spain, everybody knows, Muslim Andalus, Muslim rules for 800 years. So now the books of Aristotle and the Greco-Roman sciences, which were translated into Arabic, and they were expanded upon, they were done a lot more, addition to it. Now, they are translated from the Arabic back to Latin from two sources, from Spain and from Sicily directly. And the third source was the Crusades. So this is where the 13th century Renaissance starts. Because for 1000 years there is no Renaissance. There is no Greco-Roman sciences, philosophy. Where is it coming from? Muslim science, Muslim Spain, Muslim Sicily, and Muslim the Holy Lands. Now, there was nothing in the Christian world other than theology. Bible commentaries, the church fathers, saints' lives. Astaghfirullah, I don't want to give this kind of example, but as the Muslim Ummah is going through the dark ages right now, if you go to our madrasas, there's nothing but Quran, the tafsir, which was written 13th, 14th centuries, fiqh, which was written in maybe 15th, 16th centuries, and no math, no science, no technology is taught. Because they say that if you just follow the Quran, but honestly, you have to interpret the Quran, according to the times you are living in. So this is exactly what was happening over there in the West. You study the Bible, you study the church fathers, you study the commentaries, you don't need anything else. God's help will come, Jesus will come, and you will be basically the word. So it led to intellectual stagnation. Now here, because most of the time they agree that the concept of science and technology was not there, but they say that individual freedom and liberty, that is the gift of the West to the world. Now, and this is what they say, Judeo-Christian gift to the world. And in the book, this is going to be my emphasis, that in the Judeo-Christian tradition, there is no concept of human dignity, no concept of human equality. Actually, the Christian understanding of cosmos, of society, is hierarchical. Because in the Godhead, in the heavens, what I explained to you, that they believe God the Father, God the Holy Spirit, and God the Son. So in the same fashion, they believe that upon the earth, the nobility, the clergy, they represent God the Father and God the Holy Spirit, and everybody else is their slaves. So 98% of human beings are slaves to the clergy and to the nobility. So therefore, there was no concept of equality. There was no concept of religious freedom. As you know, in Islam, a person can be Jew, Christian, a Hindu, or atheist. The Islamic government cannot force a person to become a Muslim, because Quran made it very much clear, la ikraha fi din. In Christianity, if you are living in the Christian world, you cannot be a Jew, you cannot be even other than the religion of that state. So, therefore, if anybody doubted any part of Christianity, they were burnt alive. Just look at the pictures. Somebody will come and say, I believe this person doubts Jesus is not God. That is sufficient to burn him alive. So inquisitions and all of those things. So the word was, the cosmos was also hierarchical. And I mentioned the Trinity. Church was supreme, which means you cannot ask the question. Whatever church says, you have to accept it. Am I clear? So there's no concept. Here is the three realms of state. Now you see, this is the picture which is very famous. At the top comes the king, the crown, the king. King is above everybody. King is like God the Father. Under him comes nobility, is on the right side, and clergy is on the left. Everybody else is beneath them. They are there to listen to them, to obey them, and not to ask the question, but to serve them. This is what is the Holy Trinity. You see over there, the two at the top and the crown. So Holy Trinity governs the world. Now look at this picture. that the nobility and the clergy, they are supposed to rule while everybody is their slave. So now it was very difficult to develop science, because even when it came to scientific concepts, they were explained from the perspective of Trinity. Everything has to have three. So even the blood, now human blood is one. No, even the blood was three. There were two kinds of blood, which was called, and then there was a nervous blood, which was considered coming from the liver. So the source of the dark blood was the heart, and the seat of the nervous fluid was the brain. So now you can look at two of them, the whole world. Clergy, they might be 1%, but they've got one vote. Nobility can be 0.1%, they've got one vote, and the whole world, 98%, has got one vote. So Unitarianism was a taboo. God one, all human beings come from Him, everybody is equal. That was not even considered something acceptable by Christianity. Now, there was power struggle between the church and between the emperors. The church or the bishops or the popes, they said, we speak on behalf of God. So the kings are supposed to be under us. We give you the fatwa and you follow it, because we speak on behalf of God. And kings had the military power. They did not want to listen, so there was always power struggle. So there was so many civil wars, so much destruction, that there was no concept of science, technology, or development. Okay, and while this was the situation of Christianity, have you looked at this famous picture of Baghdad? The Muslim Baghdad, look at the middle, the central mosque of Baghdad. And look at the Tigris, or say for example, Dajla. They had the canals from there, and those canals will go all around the city. Nobody can attack it from outside. And look at, basically, some of that is still in existence. Some of those forts and castles are still in existence in Baghdad of today. I'm sure you must have heard about Qurtuba, the Muslim Qurtuba and its libraries, and the lights and the hospitals. So, and Masjid al-Qurtuba. Now, why I'm showing it, because you will see that even the architect, the masjid architect, will be taken over, and all the Christian churches will be built according to that. You will be astonished that even when the kings, Christian kings, they had their coronation. Basically, what happens is that they will ask the Muslims to build their thawb with Quranic verses, and I'm going to show you. The Pope did not know that he was carrying Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. He thought that his dress came from Spain, and when somebody said that you are a mushrik and you are not supposed to be having this one, he tore it off. That's a very historical. In France, the King of France, on the day of Christmas, is going, and he has brought a piece of cloth from Holy Land. He thought that this was part of the Holy Land. He put it on the Church of Notre Dame. So the whole world is passing by and doing the pilgrimage, because this is thought to be from the land of Jesus. One of the professors who knew Arabic language, who had lived in Istanbul, when he passed by and he says, it is cursing you and your religion. He says, what do you mean? He says, it is saying that whosoever says Jesus is the Son of God, may the curse of Allah be upon him. And it was publicly removed right away. As right now, everything is American. We dress like American, we speak like American. Whenever and when Hosni Mubarak got his $50,000, jacket and suit, all of the messages over there were in Latin. Because now, who speaks for power? This is what happens. So it was the same issue during those times. Muslims, Arabic language, Arabic culture was the language of power. Now look at Muslim Cordova. Now some of these paintings will tell you, you know this picture very well. I'm just trying to explain to you. So the Muslims were the bridge to the entire world when it comes to the Latin Christendom. Now Charles Homer Haskins, he was the Harvard historian of the Middle Ages and advisor to US President Woodrow Wilson. He says that a library of say 1100 would have little beyond the Bible and the Latin fathers with their Carolingian commentators. It is basically, as you know, the French dynasty at the time of Harun al-Rashid. That was it. The service books of the churches and lives of saints, the textbooks of Boethius and some others, bits of local history, and perhaps certain of the Latin classics too often covered with dust. But the 12th century witnessed a Latin campaign to translate books of philosophy, mathematics, and astronomy unknown to the earlier medieval tradition and recovered from the Greeks and Arabs in the course of the 12th century, ushering the 12th century Renaissance. Now, look at Renaissance of the 12th century, like its Italian successor, 300 years later, drew its life from two principal sources. You can read it, that basically it's coming from Spain, Sicily, Syria, and Africa, and also from Constantinople. Spain, Sicily, and Holy Land during the Crusade time. Shall I go to the next one? Okay, now I just want to make this statement clear. When I am talking about the Islamic civilization, I'm not saying that everything was done by the Muslims. Muslims, because the Prophet ﷺ said, Al-hikmatu dalatil mu'min, that wisdom is the last commodity of a believer. Wherever he finds it, she finds it, grabs it, and uses it, because that is the knowledge from God. And also the Prophet ﷺ said, Utlubul ilm, seek knowledge, even if you have to go to the far distant lands, and in one of them, even if you have to go to China. So Muslims, they got the Greek philosophy, they got the Indian numeral, they got the Egyptian, they got the Chinese. They made it according to their own Islamic understanding, modified it, purified it, and created a synthesis which was so brilliant that nobody else could have done it, because Muslims were in the middle of the world. Imagine the Muslim world at that time controlled what, from Spain to Sicily, and then Africa, Middle East, Southeast Asia. They had the connection with the Chinese, they had the connection with everybody. They were in the middle of the world, so they could do it, nobody else could have done at that time. And this is what I shared even during the day. Now look at what one of the famous historians of intellectual history says. Taken in its entirety, the evolution of speculative thought in the Muslim world marked a considerable enrichment of the philosophical heritage of late antiquity. So it was not just taking it from them, but enriching it. And Arabic achievements in mathematics and natural philosophy, especially astronomy, laid the foundations for later medieval science in the West. and ultimately set the stage for the scientific revolution of the 17th century. Now imagine when they come and they say, we got the science from the Greeks, from the Romans. They never mentioned, but the intellectual historians of science are saying the roots are Islamic. Now, Holy Mar, one of the, and these are the world-known authorities when it comes to science, when it comes to technology. So what does he say? During the 12th and 13th century, there was a scientific renaissance in Europe. And scholars from Christian countries journeyed to Muslim universities in Spain, Egypt, Syria, and even Morocco, in order to acquire knowledge from their foes in religion, but friends in learning. Arabic science soon became to filter through, and by the middle of the 13th century, the trickle had become a river. Now, Adelard of Bath is considered the first scientist of England. He went and he studied in Spain, and he worked in Emperor Frederick II's court in Sicily. So what does he say? From the Arab masters. To him, his teachers are who? Arabs. From Arab masters, I have learned one thing. Led by reason, while you are caught by the image of authority and led by another halter. Because church, religious authorities, they interpreted the universe, the science, according to what? He said, from the Arab masters I've learned, you follow your reason and you don't accept anybody's authority. Okay, let's talk about Muslim Spain a little bit. Just look at it. Even the names of those translators, John of Sivai, Hughes of Centella, Plato of Tivoli, Gerard of Cremona, all of them are working where? In the Muslim Spain and translating from the Arabic to Latin. Look at some of these pictures which are known from the Muslim Spain, that the hospitals in Cordoba or Muslim Spain, I mean, there are books after books. The Islamic medicine or Muslim hospitals in Spain. So look at them, and you know this picture very well. You know it very well too. Now, this is where you can see the Christian world is on the other side of Mediterranean. Muslim world is on this side of Mediterranean. But if you look at Zaragoza, that's where you've got the Muslims.
Zaragoza is not in this map.
Over there at the green one. So Muslim Spain was so close to France and so close to Italy. That's where the connection with the Muslim Sicily and the connection with Muslim Spain is the one which brought Renaissance to Italy. Now let me ask you, the modern historians, they say that Renaissance or rebirth of Greeks and Roman sciences started in Italy. That's what they call Italian Renaissance. Why Renaissance did not start in England and France? Because it started in Italy because Italy was adjacent to the Muslim world, and when those translators came, their translation came straight to the Italian cities, and that's where they started changing. Now, you can read this one. This Spanish tide flowed over the Pyrenees into southern France to centers like Narbonne, Béziers, Toulouse, Montpellier, and Marseille, where the new astronomy appears as early as 1139, and traces can also be found of the astrology, philosophy, and medicine of the Arabs on it on into the 14th century. So from 1139 till 14th century, they are just translating and absorbing Islamic sciences. Now, I want you to look at it. This is Masjid-e-Qurtuba. Now, you look at the columns, you look at the domes, and you look at the construction. You will see that when they were able to conquer Qurtuba, this architect went over all Europe and all the churches. And actually, you will be laughing when you will see that the masjids in Sicily, when the Norman came and conquered, they just put the pictures of Jesus where the name of God was there, Allah and Muhammad, and everything stayed the same. So the Christians who came and visited, they thought this is what the Christianity or the architect is. So in France, in England, you look at those medieval churches, they look like masjids. And I'll show you some of the pictures. Now, painting became very famous, and they say always, oh, in Islam, painting is not allowed. But you will see that even in the paintings, on the halo of Mary, peace be upon her, there were Arabic writings. They did not know that they were writing the Arabic Quranic verses, just copying whatever was done among the Muslims. And when it became clear to them that in the Sistine Chapel in Vatican, Michelangelo, not knowing that he is copying some Muslim scripture, he put the Kufic, writings over there. It caused so much trouble to Vatican when it was figured out, and within one night, all of that was washed and cleaned up. So this is what I'm trying to say. Okay, look at Sicily has been under Muslim rule from 902 to 1091. This is the actual rule. But some parts of the rule started even before that. Now, remember, if you have looked at the map of Italy, Italy is more connected with the Muslim East, and at that time, the power base was Muslim East, and Italian merchants, they went, and because of the money which they got from there, the Italian Renaissance started in Italy. Now let's talk about Sicily also. This is the masjid I'm talking about. So it was a masjid, and then when the Romans conquered it, they changed it into a cathedral. So even on the right side or at the top of Jesus, the Arabic writings still appear. Now let's talk about Sicily. Sicily, this is where the Muslims, they had their control for 300 years. When the Normans came from France, they occupied it, and then they occupied the rest of that. So this is the Kingdom of Sicily in 1154. Now, let's say what Huskan says about Sicily, one Italian land which took more direct part in the movement, namely Sicily. Midway between Europe and Africa, Sicily had been under Arab rule from 902 to 1091. And under the Normans who followed it, retained a large Mohammedan elements in its population. Moreover, it had many commercial relations with Mohammedan countries, while King Roger conducted campaigns in northern Africa and Frederick Crew made an expedition to Palestine. Now, I'm going to summarize it. Normans come from Normandy. Normandy is the most northern part of France. One cousin, Roger I, he came and he occupied Muslim Sicily and then occupied the Italian peninsula. his cousin William the Conqueror. He crossed over the English Channel and he conquered England. So Roger is the king in Sicily and his cousin is the king of England. Now this is where you will be surprised. The king of England writes to his cousin, I am having trouble because these people are very uneducated. They do not follow any contract. They have got no law. There's nothing to rule them. Roger writes to him, he said, I have found the treasure trove. Everything is written down. Every institution is properly developed. I don't care whether it comes from Islam. As long as they give me money, they accept my rule, they give me taxes, I have applied the same thing. I applied, these Muslims, I told them, translate it for me. Let me understand. If it is just, I will apply it. And when I looked at it, it is so developed that if you apply the same thing, you will have peace. He said, send it to me. So he sends one of the Muslim translators and his national exchequer to go to the King of England. King of England reads it. He calls the English barons and says, this is the law which I am thinking. They ask for some modifications, and after those modifications, it is implemented as it was in Muslim Sicily. This is what is called English common law. Now you are told, English common law is the basis of all American Western laws. But historians keep on discussing where it came from, because it is very different than the Roman civil law. Totally different. They keep on saying it has come from this civilization, but then now the modern, legal professors, they have concluded that actually it came from the Islamic law. So this is where Sicily's role. Now, if you look at all of these sciences, they were translated in Sicily, and from there they were transmitted to England and they were transmitted to France. Shall I go to the next one? Now, this is what I'm talking about. When it comes to common law, the modern historians say that it is shrouded in mystery. Created over 7 centuries ago during the reign of King Henry II of England. To this day, we do not know how some of its most distinctive institutions arose. For example, where did we get the idea that contract transfers property ownership by words and not by delivery? Or that possession is a form of property ownership? Now, these are some legal terms. I just want you to understand. Even more importantly, where did we get the idea that every person is entitled to trial by jury? I was really surprised when there was discussion taking place between the supporters of President Trump and the supporters of, say, for example, the anti-Trump. One of the Fox News anchor, she asked its staff to, because Bannon is advisor, so there was issue of jury or non-jury, or this is the whole issue of January 6th. So she asked, let's find the origin of jury system, because she wanted to go. And when she was given the report, she said, oh my God. And she read it not knowing that this is what's going to be happening. She read it, and after reading it on the air, she said, so this jury system came to us from Islam, and here we are worried about Sharia. Wallahi, sometimes, my brothers and sisters, we are so much ignorant about our heritage that our institutions, our knowledge is taken over, and sometimes we are talking all over the world about American justice, American jury system, not knowing that this is what was the outcome of our forefathers. So, Islamic legal system was far superior to the primitive legal system of England before the birth of the common law. It was natural for the most primitive system to look to the more sophisticated one as it developed three institutions that played a major role in creating the common law. You can read it. Now,
Dr. Shah, just a quick question.
yes.
You mentioned about the jury system originated within Muslim civilization. Which Muslim country currently uses a jury system?
It was first applied in Morocco under the Maliki jurist Imam al-Qarrafi. So from there it was applied in Sicily because when they doubted the authority of the king of that time, and they found that some of the judicial officials were also following or towing the line of the king. So that's where they said that we doubt the authority or the justice. So they introduced this concept of lafif, which is jury system. From there it was applied in Sicily for 300 years, and then King Roger took it, and from there it was taken to England.
So the Muslims dropped it.
Yes. Yes. Okay. Now, I want you to look up for the name of John Makdisi.
Sorry, George.
George Makdisi is the father.
Oh, this is the son.
John is my buddy,
Oh,
so George is my teacher. So George Makdisi and John Makdisi and Michael Makdisi.
oh, okay.
So George Makdisi will come later. When it comes to, let me just explain now. George Makdisi, I'm going to quote him later on. He was a Christian, Lebanese Christian born in Detroit. He studied, did PhD, and then became a professor at Harvard University. From Harvard, he came to Pennsylvania and was the head department of Oriental Studies for a long time and died in Pennsylvania. So his son, John, is the professor of law. He was head department of law in St. Thomas University when I was teaching Department of Philosophy and Religious Studies. So he is my buddy. I know him very well. He is still in Miami, just retired. In 1999, because his father has done the research work that scholasticism, humanism, and Renaissance, they took everything from Muslims. And while he was studying that period, he figured out that there is so much commonalities between common law and Islamic law. So he said to his son, this is not my field, this is your field. Can you look into it? And when John looked into it, he wrote his article, famous article in 1999, where he came out and he said that common law is so different from the Roman civil law that there's nothing of Roman in it. It has got everything Islamic because a whole package cannot be transmitted by bits and pieces. It must have come in one bunch from somewhere. And that's where this whole issue of Sicily came, that King Roger adopted it. He sent it to his cousin William, and his son implemented it with some English modifications. Now, look into different institutions. He basically says license to teach, because his father, and it's going to come, his father has done the research work and wrote the book, Universities, Colleges and Universities in the West and the Islamic World. And he has proven that we say license, this person has got this license or that license. That was the word ijaza. When these crusaders went to Holy Land, what happens? This person has the ijaza in Quran. This person has the ijaza in Qudat. This person has the ijaza in Hadith. So that's where they started their system, this person has got the license to speak, license to operate, license to
Teach.
baccalaureate. I basically jumped to it because you asked the question, it was going to come later on. Now, baccalaureate, the pronunciation is بحق الرواية. Basically, this person has got the permission to narrate on behalf of such and such. This person has become muallim or ustaz, masters. Masters is what? That this person has become the ustaz in this field. And he has also proven that there was no college, no universities, there was only seminaries in the West. The first university was established by a returning crusade who basically looked at a madrasa and exactly did its copy in Paris. And the second returning crusader established Oxford. So this is with George Makdisi. His book is going to come. Yes, his book, I'm going to show it to you. But George Makdisi, he shows that even in the legal system, this whole concept, the license to teach, or the law schools known as Inns of Court, all of them have come from the Islamic world. Now, look at some of the fundamental legal concepts in the Western system, and now, Brother Ahmad, your expertise will come. Now, Muslim Waqf and Hawala, they were the swords of University of Paris, University of Oxford, and Merton College. As you know, Merton College was even before Oxford University. So when this returning Templar came from Holy Land Crusade, he established the first college in France and in England. Now, several legal institutes. Now, as you know, Hawala became Avalo. Hawala became what? Avalo. Avalo is the Italian word for Hawala. Even nowadays, you send money from here, the guy is taking the money from here in dollars and will give you the money in. You do not know that the banking system was first established by the Muslims. The credit, sukuk, were first established by the Muslims. Muslim empire was so huge that it was difficult to go from one place to the other place with money. So they started writing what? Letter of credit. And now everybody takes the credit and does not even accept the Muslim contributions.
Sorry,
Now-
can you explain that? So when you say letters of credit, do you mean like fiat currency? What do you mean?
Instead of giving the currency or carrying the currency, the person sitting in Oman or in, say, for example, Cairo will write, write a letter, sign with it, and that will carry that his party in China will give that money.
So it's like the beginning of the checking system. It's like a check. Yeah.
No, do you know that the original word sheikh is the Arabic word sak? The Arabic word sak was used by the Italian as shak, and then it became check.
The word really in Arabic, the hawala, is kind of almost like wiring over.
This is what is hawala. Yes. Wallahi, because I'm just jumping through. One time, I'm sitting in the library and I'm reading, because when I was studying the 16th century manuscripts, some of these English words I don't understand. So I'm looking at different library, different dictionaries. At that time, there was not much of computer. So I'm going from one dictionary to the other dictionary because in one of the letters it says that they don't accept us as human beings. They call us, and this is the curse in Urdu, I cannot say it. One of the English who is working in India, he is writing to his bosses in England that our character or our business deals and our drinking habits and our ladies and promiscuity is so disrespected here. They don't call us as Christians or English, they call us behind such and such and beti such and such. So, and this is the word I'm reading, and I do not know what is the meaning. And I did not know that this is from my mother tongue. I kept on doing research, and after when I figured out that it was used first time in 16th century as mother such and such and, oh my God. Now, look at the word looting. Those who speak Urdu, they know the word looting, lootma. This is how it got into English, because they started looting the Mughal, all of those. Let's go for looting. 33% of English words are either from Persian, Arabic, or Urdu or Punjab.
33. It's a lot.
Look at the word pajama. Look at so many words, for God's sake. I mean, even when it comes to Damascus, I mean, everybody says coffee or kahve. Do you know where the coffee started first time? In Yemen. From Yemen, it was taken in the Ottoman Empire. And when these English, they came, this everywhere kahve shop. So they took the coffee first time in 1650 to Oxford. There they established the first coffee shop, and everybody is coming there. Within 10 years, there were 2,000 coffee shops in London. What were they called? The name was not English. It was Sultan, Sultana, Izmir, Constantinople. And what was the sign? When you go to KFC, you see a special guy. What was the sign of coffee shop? Turban. Look at those pictures. I mean, because that is not part of the discussion. That is part of the later chapters. So now they took over coffee, and now it looks like it is the American coffee, the French coffee, the English coffee, Colombian coffee. This is the way, sometimes you forget your roots, and this is what happens. Anyhow, even the international law, because remember, they were not dealing with each other. Guys, you have to understand that these were not big countries. England or Italy. Italy was city-states. Every city has got a state. It is just like you go to Dubai now, it's a state. Abu Dhabi is a state. This is exactly what's happening at that time. These are small city-states. There was no concept of an empire. So international law came from, now look at, it used to be an article on Wikipedia, but now they have changed it. I've got the copy when I read it long time ago. So look at how much they are saying that they took it from the Muslims, and is there anything left after that? But right now, they don't want to give the credit to Muslims.
How could they do that though? I mean, Wikipedia is supposed to be, open.
There are a lot of pressures. Lot of pressures. So some modifications are made. Now
You have to fight on Wikipedia. You have to devote your life to fighting for it. You can pull anything down on Wikipedia by filing a complaint against it.
Oh, really?
But yet, it's a battle.
Now
It's
sometimes
not worth your time.
The influence of crusades is as if people think that crusaders came, they fought the Muslims, they hated the Muslims, so they never learned anything. But people don't understand, for 100 years they lived, they took a lot from the Islamic world. This is one of the guys, the Crusaders' leaders. After the Battle of Jerusalem, this is what he writes. Who could doubt that such goodness, friendship, and charity come from God? Men whose parents, sons and daughters, brothers and sisters had died in agony at our hands, whose lands we took, whom we drove naked from their homes, revived us with their own food when we were dying of hunger, and showered us with kindness even when we were in their power. When Muslims retook Jerusalem, you remember, when they took Jerusalem, they asked everybody, come inside Masjid al-Aqsa and you will be safe. So Muslims went inside Masjid. They killed them, 75,000, from the morning till the evening. And their historians say that Masjid al-Aqsa's compound was filled with blood to the knees. But when Muslims took, and these are hungry and thirsty people, they took them home, they provided them with shelter, it was very cold. And this is the leader says, how can you say this is not from God? This religion is from God, our religion is not from God. Sometimes we do not understand that the leader of crusades in the 11th, 13th and 14th century, let's take the example of basically Saint Louis. It is declared Saint Louis IX of France was the leader, and he was the emperor of France. He lost the battle. He was arrested in Egypt and stayed there for 3 years in the prison. Him, his wife, and his children. He had to pay. He had to come to the conclusion that for the next 5 years, all the taxes of my empire will come to get his freedom. But when he went back, he started asking questions from the Pope and everybody. The way we treat each other, the way we deceive each other, the way we kill each other. I killed everything which came in front of me, and look the way they treated me for 3 years. So this is where, when it comes to the Crusades, they also were the Muslim bridge. So the world became known to them, to the West, by means of what? This Muslim bridge through Muslim Spain, Sicily, and here is what Huskin says. I want you to read this one and see how much of that is from the Islamic world and how much of that is coming from the Western world.
So it's just few minutes, 2-3 minutes.
Oh my God. I'm sorry, I did not even look at the time, and I was supposed to be finishing at 7:45 to give you, I'm sorry, I was not looking at that. I'll stop here. And actually, if you see, I've got so much prepared. I spent the whole week, and there is so much which I'm supposed to be sharing with you.
This will take another 2 sessions.
Oh my God, see, look at these. Oh, look at La ilaha illallah, Muhammadur Rasulullah. Look at the top. Mary,
Yeah.
in the painting, which was the painting, on the halo, it is La ilaha illallah. But then we'll share it later on sometime.
Sure.
What about next week, next session?
Okay, now I am available. If you brothers and sisters want to come on Thanksgiving weekend, I am in town. But then, if you do not do on Thanksgiving, then the next Sunday is fundraiser on December 4th. So Sister Taseen said that we cannot have it on Sunday before. And then starting from 15th till the January 15th, I will be out. So you decide. You want to come on Thanksgiving weekend, or you want to come and meet inshallah in January.
What's the date on the second?
Thanksgiving is Sunday after Thanksgiving.
It'll be the 27th, I think.
Yes,
Thanksgiving's on Thursday, right? It doesn't matter.
But he's saying the Sunday
The
after,
Sunday.
the Sunday of Thanksgiving weekend.
And that date on Sunday is
27.
27th. I'll come.
and I told you that I am not traveling on that weekend, so I will be available. But if we do not do it on Thanksgiving, the following Sunday is December 4th, which is fundraising of ISM Brookfield. So we cannot do it. So either we do it on Thanksgiving weekend, or then as mentioned, by the 11th, I will be leaving for almost a month.
We
So
should
let's
do
do
on
it then.
Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving,
On the 27th, yeah.
Is that okay? How many people wants to do it on the Sunday after Thanksgiving? MashaAllah. Shall we continue then? Okay then, inshallah. On the Sunday,